Hi, this is Kari, and I, along with Cheryl and Colleen, are the Consistently Creative Crew. And we created the Christmas Charm Project recipe traditionally on Wednesday night. And I wanted to jump on and record a video of it doing this digitally using Artisan. So I first wanted to show you what the project recipe looks like. So this is the layout, and you can kind of see that the right and left pages are, for the most part, mirror images of each other. They both have these three squares across the bottom, even though they turned one into a journaling box. They have a border punch that they used here just above those three photos. And then they have two photos on the left page, three on the right, but it's all fairly similar. So when I'm going to design this, I'm going to design one page, and then I'm going to go back and just mirror image it and make any modifications that I need to do this in order to create the second page. So Creative Memories always provides the advisors some information about the page or paper selections that they're using. So what they did in their sample page is they use these two papers as their bases. They cut these other red and golden color paper for the rest of their design. And then they show two other paper pairings. And the second one is very similar. There's green bases, there's red and golden uh, papers that are cut. And then the other one is quite different, where they've got this white paper with a pattern on it and a red, and then it looks like maybe holly on it. So that was their kit, and they used the new ribbons and bows border punch in their sample. So that was what they used. And I took a look at the directions. We've got the information here. If you don't have a copy of these, you can find them on our Consistently Creative Croppers Facebook group. So our business page is Consistently Creative Crew, and our group on Facebook is Consistently Creative Croppers, because we couldn't name it the same thing. So the PDF of this project recipe is there, so you can always grab it. And it's really nice to have, because not only do they provide instructions here, which are great if you're creating this traditionally, but if you're creating it digitally, we've got all of the sizes here, which is very helpful, as well as all of the photo sizes. So one thing I wanted to do before I created this was I purchased the Christmas Charm digital kit from Creative Memories. And it's been a while since I've shown how to bring these digital files into the Artisan software. So I thought I would show you how I do this, and a couple things that makes this a little bit easier. So I'm going to minimize this. So what I did was I went into my Creative Memories account, I purchased it, and then I downloaded it. And it downloads into a zip file. You can see here, CM Christmas Charm Kit, and it's digital. So I'm going to unzip that by double clicking on it. And there's three folders as well as a content license agreement on it. So in here, in the first one, these are 12 by 12 papers. So those I'm going to want to bring in as papers into the software. There's elements, and all of those I'm going to want to bring in as elements. And then there's the matte pack. And some people like to bring in the matte pack one way, and other people like to bring it in another. I like to bring it in as an element and then bring it over as a matte if I'm going to actually use it. So some people like to bring it over as paper, but since the dimensions of the matte packs are really not 12 by 12, and that's what I typically do all of my digital scrapbooking in a square format, the matte packs work better for me as an element. So I also have on my desktop a folder that's called Temporary Digital Art. And I use this to move these images that are JPEGs, and they're in a zip folder. I move them from the zip folder over to this temporary digital art folder because I can't bring in and I can't open zip files in the software. So that's fairly typical of most software. You have to actually unzip them, save the files someplace else, and then bring them in. So I have this sitting on my desktop and it's almost always empty because what I do is I put the images into this temporary digital art folder. And once I'm done bringing it into Artisan, I delete it. So I've got one for embellishments and others things, and then I have one for paper. So in this Christmas charm, I'm going to go into these paper and I'm going to select all by clicking on one and then typing Control A. And then I can drag these over into paper, and you see it says copy to paper, and that'll take just a moment. And if I double click, they're all there. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to take all those elements and I'm going to select all, and I'm going to copy them to embellishments, and then there, it's all done. And then with the matte pack, I'm going to also drag those into my embellishments, and that's done. So now I'm going to bring my Artisan screen up into it, and I'm going to show you bringing those into my content. So I am going to create an art kit, and I'm going to store that in my Creative Memories new company, and it's called Christmas Charm Digital Kit. I'm going to say okay. And it says use the buttons on the ribbon above to import papers, embellishments into this art kit or create other types of content. So I'm going to import paper. And since I've got those again stored on my desktop, I can easily find them. So I'm bringing in paper. So I want to open the paper up. I'm selecting the first one, clicking Control A, opening those up, and it will populate this kit with all of those papers. That's pretty fast. And now I'm going to go on to the embellishments up at the top. So I'm going to add embellishments, and it remembers the last folder. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add all the embellishments, and that will take a moment because there was over 100 items, but it should still happen fairly quickly. Now, if I want to take the time and tag all of this here, I can definitely do that now. I'm not going to do that in the interest of time. But if I am tagging this, I'm probably going to do a couple of items. One, I'm going to tag the whole kit as a Christmas kit. So that way, when I'm looking for some kits that are Christmas, I can tag the whole entire kit as Christmas. And then I'm kind of just looking at this. I've got a lot of things that are mats, and I do have a tag for mats. I've got some things for berries or nature. These are bells. I've got some animals. I've got candy. I've got stars. So, and then I've got a lot of words that are dealing with the holidays. So this should be a fairly easy kit for me to tag, but now I can use it on my page. So let me get back into my Artisan project. Okay, so let's take another quick look at this. So I'm going to have a base that's 12 by 12. I'm going to want to create these 3 squares along the bottom. And if I look at this, these are 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And let's go ahead and do both of those. So I'm going to go up to the insert ribbon, go to content shape rectangle. I'm going to fill this as 12 by 12. Click OK. I go back up to the home ribbon, align it, center on page. Now that's my base. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn it green for right now because that's essentially the color that it was in their sample. I'll change it to papers in just a bit. And then I had the 3 squares on the bottom that were 3 3/4. So I'm going to go to insert content shape rectangle. So 3.75 by 3.75. And these were the golden color. So I'm gonna kind of make it that. So on my second screen, the pop-up for the color actually showed up. I don't really want to stroke on that, so I'm going to put that down there. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to insert the photo frame on this one. And I didn't note the size, so I'm going to go back to my information. This was 3.5 by 3.5. So I'm going to, with this photo, I'm going to change the width and the height to 3.5 by 3.5. That didn't type right. And now I'm going to go ahead and align these two squares on top of each other. So I'm going to center the horizontal center point and the vertical center point. And now I'm going to go ahead and group these together. So I need 3 of them. So I'm going to copy and paste. And again, you can use, there's 3 ways to copy and paste. You can go to the home ribbon, edit, copy, and then select paste. You can do Control-C and Control-V, or you can do it by right mouse clicking and then pasting. So whatever works best for you. Now I'm going to want these 3 spaced equally across the bottom here. Now I think that's relatively close, but I'm going to go ahead and let the software do it for me. So if I select all 3 of them and I select from the home ribbon, arrange, align, distribute horizontally, it will kind of space them out nicely. And if I want them perfectly centered, you can kind of see that I've got a little bit more space on the left than I do on the right. I can group them all together temporarily, go back and align. So I'm going to center them horizontally, bumped it over just a little bit, and then I can ungroup them. So now they're pretty much where I want them. I may want to move them up later. I may want to move them down, but for right now, I think they're in a pretty good location. So let's take a look at the project recipe again. So we've got this punch, which I'm going to leave alone for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and do this photo mat. This is I believe it's a 4x6. Yes, it's a 4x6. It's red. And so I'm going to create that. And it has a photo that's a 1/2 inch smaller in both dimensions. So insert, shape, rectangle. This was red. And it was 4x6. And I'm going to go ahead and click create. And that was up, and I'm going to leave some space for that border punch. And now I've got insert an empty photo frame. And this one I want to be 3.5 by 5.5. I'm having problems typing in my numbers. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and select both of these and align them again using the quick access toolbar. The second one and the 5th one will align them. I don't think I need to group them, so I'm just going to leave those alone. And then I believe there was a horizontal photo, and it was going to be essentially the same dimensions. Yeah. And this one had a different color here. So because they ended up, I believe, they ended up with these 3 were the red ones. And then this one was the reverse of the golden color. So right now, I'm just going to make it the golden color because it's not going to matter. So I'm going to insert another rectangle. This one is going to be 6x4. I'll make it the golden color. That over here. And then I'm going to insert an empty frame. This one's going to be 5.5 by 3.5. I must be just typing too fast. And then I'm going to select both of those and align them again using the 2nd and the 5th. And then I think we are in pretty good shape. So we'll go ahead and there we go. Now they're fairly well aligned. So Depending on what you're going to do for this strip in the center, if you want to do a border punch, or you have some kind of other embellishment that you want to use, I want to show you one kind of option. So one thing that you could do is you could take a shape, and I'm going to turn it white just for right now. I'm going to make it 12 inches wide by 2. So this is obviously way wider, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut it using a shaped edge. So you have to flatten it. So you can see this is one that I picked yesterday when I was first working on it. But this was an old digital shape, Croptoberfest 2012. But I thought this would work really well for a holiday type of image. So, but there's a lot of different edges that we have within the software. If you want to pick something else, or you have something else that actually fits what you're going to do. But I'm going to just stick with this one because I think that's going to work really well. So when it comes in, you have a number of options. So you can, where you're going to place it, how tall you're going to make it, how big you're going to make it, if you want it really big, if you want it really small, depending on how you want to do that. You can also adjust the aspect ratio, so you can kind of make it wider, or here you can make it taller. You can adjust the spacing, so if you want to have it spaced out a little bit more. Lots of options that you can use here. So one thing that can be challenging when you're cutting these is to get it so it's like precisely on the edge. So with this one, you can kind of see how it is, what it's going to cut. There's actually going to be a gap here, and this is going to be really easy to remove later on. So I'm not going to worry too much about the placement of where this is going to be. So I'm just going to end up doing this in 2 steps. But I think I want to make this maybe a 1 inch. Let's see, maybe a 1 inch border, just to see how that will turn out. Now, I'm going to look at this one edge, at the left edge. I'm going to see if I can make it so it will start off maybe right there. Let's see, how does that look on that? That's okay. So if you want to line up the edge on the edge of your paper, you can, you shift things around a little bit so that it ends up the way you want it. And I am going to keep both areas so you can see how that actually looks. So I've got this area, which I don't want, but you can see I'm left with this little bit of this very thin line here on the other one. So this is going to be really easy to cut using the straight edge, because all I need to do is slide it down there. And this time I'm just going to keep the shaded area and cut. And now I'm just left with that. So if you want to fill this with some other paper or some other thing, you can actually do that. So that was a pretty quick and easy way to come up with a nice imitation of a border punch. So let's go back and take a quick look at the project recipe and see if we're ready to go ahead and mirror image that. So I think I'm in pretty good shape here. They do have these 2 gifts. So this was actually just at leftover paper that they had here, which would be great if you don't know what else you're going to do with the paper. You could actually create gifts, or you could create, these could be the bases for some kind of embellishment cluster. So that works out really well. I'll go ahead and add those. They were 2 by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and insert shape rectangle 2 by 2. I'm going to fill it with that gold color. And I'm going to copy it by going to the home ribbon, copy and pasting. I'm going to put those here. Now, if you had that bow punch, you could actually add the bows here, but I would probably find an embellishment if that's what I wanted to turn these into. So I think I'm in pretty good shape to go ahead and mirror image this. So I am going to go over into my panel on the right-hand side, and I'm going to insert a mirror image of this page. And it's like magic. My other page appears. So it inserts it before it. So I'm gonna change the order. So now it's like this. So now I'm gonna pick my right-hand page. Now, if I go back and I look at what this looked like, I'm good. I want to keep those 3 squares on the bottom. I wanted to keep the cutout punch. I don't want this horizontal photo. I want to go ahead and have a second vertical photo, and then I need to add this one. So I'm going to go ahead and go in. I'm going to leave this one for right now. I'll just change the size, but I'm going to add the second one. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and group it now, copy and paste it. I'll put that in here. I don't need these two. Just going to slide this down a little ways. So now let's get the dimensions of the photo mat and the other piece here. So this one, it was a 2.5 by 3.5 photo, and it was a 3 by 4 piece of paper. So 2.5 by 3.5, and this was 3 by 4. And it remains centered. So I'm going to go ahead and put this here. And I like to fill everything first before I start angling anything or rotating it. So I am actually going to group these together. And I think what I really want is I would really like that to be evenly spaced. Let's see how close I got. Distribute horizontally. It's not quite what I want. So I want to move this over just a hair. Try it again. All right, so I think I'm in pretty good shape there. So let me save it and let's view the 2 pages. So I'm going to do 2 separate trim pages. I think this is basically the layout. So I think that turned out pretty well. Let me go ahead and take a look at my content and go into the creative memories. Let's get to that Christmas charm. And let's take a look. So they had the plaid as the background and that red and that. So, okay, let's change all of that. So they had the plaid as the background. They had this red. And then I'm going to ungroup all of these. And I'm going to fill all of these items all at the same time with that. And I could have done that before I mirror imaged everything. And you notice when I fill things that have different aspect ratios that it fills them slightly differently, because you can notice that the diagonal lines here are a little bit more spaced out than the diagonal lines in the squares. So depending on, and that was because I filled them all together. So if I fill them all independently, they will end up a little bit different. And I could always select different sections of those papers if I want. And I will go ahead and do that. And then this white seems really stark. Let's see how this looks when I fill it with this. Well, that's kind of fun. Or I could fill it with this. Let's see how this light color. I don't think so. So we'll go back to that. All right, so then I could fill everything off on the other side of my page and add some of the embellishments in and be all set to go. So I want this ungrouped. So there were a lot of varieties of people doing some of these pages last night when we were online. And so I can show you the one that I created, and hopefully there will be some other people sharing them in the Consistently Creative Croppers album. And you'll be able to see some of the other creations. There were a couple people who created this digitally last night also. So hopefully this will show you how to do this layout fairly fast, fairly quickly. And if you decide that with your papers, they don't work with the photos that you have, you can always change them out. That's the nice thing about digital layouts. So you can always go in and make some changes, make some editing. But there's a lot of really nice things in this kit. So a lot of fun things to use and play around with. So that is that layout. I will show you my finished layout. And I actually used a Creative Memories kit from 2009. I used the classic 'Tis the Season digital kit, I think it was called. I'll double check that in a moment. So it always takes an extra moment. So what I did with this one, this is, yeah, classic Tis the Season digital kit from 2009 with Creative Memories. So I just picked some paper that was fairly similar, and this was actually a sticker in this kit. So I used that. I decided to use those squares up in the top and pick 3 of them and put them in as some embellishments. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you do create a page, be sure to share it and save it so we can see it on our Consistently Creative Croppers Facebook group. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and drop us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next month.